Hi everyone and welcome. This is Sheba and I'll be your co-host for tonight. So we are really excited to welcome you all for tonight's session on driving documentation workflows in the age of AI. Now I'm delighted to introduce our speaker Marco Spinello, senior technical writer from booking.com. With experience in both startups and larger companies, Marco has helped teams create practical docs that solve user problems. Today, he'll be sharing insights on how technical communications can strategically integrate AI into the documentation process to enhance efficiency, accuracy, and user centric content. With that, I'll hand over it to Marco. The stage is all yours.
Hi, Shiba. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Thank you for making time and for joining this webinar. I want to thank Document360 for reaching out to me and for inviting me to share my thoughts and opinions about technical documentation, how we do it. We will talk about how to leverage a little bit of AI by holding it on a tight leash to improve the way we make docs, to make it more predictable and possibly more scalable. A couple of words about me. My nickname at the previous company was The Dude. It was a startup with 10 people, and there were already 2 Marcos. So they decided to call me The Dude because I remember pretty much all the quotes and all dialogues from the Big Lebowski. I see myself as a typo creator at scale, so thank goodness for AI and for Veil, the prose linter tool for fixing all my typos. And I really nuked the production database. It was a Confluence database that I destroyed with help from an engineer, thank goodness, to really destroy it. And there was our excuse to test actually if we did have a disaster recovery procedure in place, which we did. It took 5 minutes of crying and 2 hours of restoring, and then we were back online. So that's actually not too bad. I haven't been in this space for very long. I've been a tech writer for less than 15 years. But I've been messy enough to touch pretty much everything there is around. I worked with open source wikis, with enterprise wikis. I developed a love-hate relationship with data XML, and I still like the data specification very much. And then I moved to Docs as code, and I found a little bit of a happy space there. So I tried structured text and Sphinx, of course, to document Python code bases, ASCII-Doc Markdown, and MDX, because front-end developers love everything which is JavaScript oriented or TypeScript oriented. So we use MDX and Mermaid syntax for diagrams. Yeah, I consider myself somebody who dabbles with many things. So not really an expert, but more of a curious person. About this talk, let's full disclosure, Claude helped me with it. Since I got an invitation to do a talk about documentation and AI, I said, well, I might get a little help from AI. So I had a few sessions. I sparred with Claude during 3 or 4 evenings to get some ideas, about the structure of the talk, and to validate or verify some of the assumptions that I was making. There is a link to the entire conversation that I had with Claude. If you're curious and if you want to see what it's like, it's really long. So I mean, just look at it for reference. And since it's talk about AI, I decided, well, let's go all the way. Let's get also AI generated images for the presentation. I prefer to first search for existing images that are AI generated, and I'll tell you later why I had this preference, and I use Pixabay as my source for that. But most of the images in this presentation are AI generated, which means they are wacky. I'll spend a few seconds on each slide to to stress the wackiness of the images, which is one of the points also of the talk that I want to make today. AI is great, but you really, really, really need to keep it on a leash, on a tight leash. If you keep it on a leash, it's good. Otherwise, it can go all over the place. How are we going to move through this little walk that we are taking today? First, we can start facing the chaos, which is the docs that we work with on a daily basis. And the chaos can be existing documentation or a pile of obsolete documentation of transforming, migrating a huge documentation corpus from a tool to a different tool. But I think that if you are a tech writer, you know what I mean when I hint at chaos in documentation and our urge to create order in there. Then once we face the chaos and we shape a little bit of order, we can start thinking about bringing the AI. It's important that you don't start thinking in a way that may be a little bit too optimistic. Oh, AI can fix all my stuff. It doesn't need to be orderly. It doesn't need to be structured. AI can deal with mess to a very limited extent. It really likes structure, just like humans, basically. So if you before you bring it in, make sure you get your stuff together. You kind of stress clean before inviting guests over for dinner, and then you can start bringing it in. You can start looking for patterns and use cases in your documentation or in your processes that can benefit from a little bit of AI help. A good way to do that is to search for patterns, use cases, recurring things that keep popping up and that catch your attention, and start with those as good candidates. Develop those initial ideas into a use case that you can use as a pilot, and keep it small. Small because you don't want to put too much effort in something that may or may not work out. And if you start small, you can always expand on it. You can elaborate. You can spawn new tools or new agents, for example, without too much damage. Once you start seeing the progress and you track what is working and what is not working, it's pretty much a rinse and repeat. Keep track of the good stuff, iterate on it, keep track of the bad stuff, understand why it's happening and how you can avoid doing it, and you can expand and move on in an iterative way. So yeah, this is a typical day in the life of a tech writer. The mess is not us. The mess is that because we are generalists, and we were a bridge that connects many different roles, especially in a mid to large organization. We work with product owners, product managers. We work with designers, with UX writers, with engineers, with testers, so with QA engineers. We interact with customer support, and sometimes also with end users. These are many different roles. They have different angles, different requirements, needs, and complaints. So we end up acting like big sponges that absorb all this amount of information and need to make sense out of it. A side effect is that this creates a lot of entropy. And so I started going to Pixabay, and I wanted to see if AI has some idea about mess. I studied under clutter. Nope, didn't have anything. Disorder also couldn't produce any valid images. Messy, nothing. Mayhem, absolutely nothing. Which means to me it was sort of a little hint at the fact that AI and unstructured, messy content don't really go very well together. They go a little bit better with ordered, which produced some images, and structured, which produced much more many more images. So I said, we are onto something. AI likes structured stuff. So I produced this mental image of my documentation, which in my mind at least is this wonder of Swiss clock precision and gorgeous, beautiful book with kind of worrying, crumbling bits at the bottom, which are part of the picture, and you need to take them into account because they could, well, they could take down the entire structure. How do we get started? Usually when I get a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and AI is honestly so new and so big that there's a ton of stuff to learn, and I don't see myself as an expert. The first thing I do is I map the territory. I try to find out where I am. Um, in this case, first conducting an audit, the documentation corpus that you work on, that you own or control, or in any case of the bunch of documentation that you want to improve or enhance with AI. Make an audit to understand what is up to date, what is obsolete, what works, what doesn't work. Try to find out some messy areas, for example, with procedures with incomplete steps, or some feature descriptions about features that were maybe rolled out in beta and then rolled back, so they're not available in production in GA anymore. Try to understand the landscape they are going to deal with. Then start to map what I call the signposts. So the traffic directions that you have on roads, and that's usually the top navigation, the side navigation, the footer, if there are some other elements on the documentation website that provide main global navigation, include them as signposts. Then I map the roads. The roads are the infrastructure that allow people to go from place to place in many different ways, and those are links, cross links, the related topics, or see also that you have at the bottom of Wikipedia articles. And those help you map not only the hierarchy of the documentation, which is the basic structural walls that build your docs, and not just the navigation, which is the suggested ways that you as an author put forward to encourage a user to explore the docs in a structured way that will never do that. Try to find out how they interact and how they move across your docs. And then once you've identified the roadwork and the infrastructure, start looking for the potholes. The potholes in your infrastructure are basically documentation gaps and all the stuff that doesn't work. Redundant docs, duplicated docs, obsolete docs, and so on. So that's in my opinion, the first thing to do if you want to get serious with AI. Then you can start moving on and say, well, okay, I know where I am. I know how my docs are connected, and I have a decent idea of how my users consume them. Now what? You want to bring AI to help you. What can it do for you? In my opinion, I'm lazy, so I don't like to do the boring parts. And usually the boring parts are good candidates for tasks that you can feed to an AI. Is the stuff that can affect the format of your deliverable, or the presentation layer, for example, or the process, the way in which you go through the life cycle of your documentation. I want to focus on the process because this is where I feel AI can really do a lot of grunt work for relatively little effort. So what are the boring things? The boring things, at least in my experience as a documentarian, are those tasks that are high effort, that have low satisfaction, and that are repetitive. It's boring stuff. Especially the repetitive part is a good indicator of something you can turn into an automated process or a repeatable, predictable process that you can delegate to a machine. So in our case, to AI. Think, for example, of getting started with a new piece of documentation and starting really from scratch. You just have maybe a ticket on Jira, and if you're lucky, a PR on GitHub or an MR on GitLab with maybe some code comments, and that's all you got. How do you get started from there? I'm lazy, so I ask an AI. AI is great at giving you the basic blocks, the initial blocks to help you get going. It gives you the initial momentum, and then you can keep the momentum as you move forward. It's good at scaffolding things. It's good at gathering some information that you need to do your job, at suggesting or fetching information from many different sources that would take you hours or maybe a couple of days. It's good at doing all the grunt work. So you can focus on the more fun stuff, which is fleshing out an article, making it really shine, making documentation that really helps your users and leaves them with a sense of, I got this, I can achieve this task, and I can move on. So I had to look at I was following the polls that Shiba shared at the beginning of the webinar, and they were interesting because AI can help us throughout the life cycle of our documentation, from gathering information. It's really good at finding stuff if you give it clear instruction. It's also relatively good at double checking or validating the sources. This is a little bit trickier, and we're gonna break it down in a couple of minutes. Also, if you provide the model with very clear, unambiguous, and structured instructions, it's pretty good at planning and structuring things for you. And if you have enough content that you can feed it, enough reference content you can feed it, it's good at creating not ready for production content, but a good initial draft that can actually inspire you to flesh it out into a beautiful piece of documentation. I may sound a little bit too optimistic or idealistic, but based on my user experience so far with AI in my daily documentation tasks, it really gives me a very good head start. It gets me going much faster than I used to when I was just staring at a blank screen. You can also use AI to test and validate your content. In this case, you can couple it to existing tools like, for example, Veil, or other linters or grammar checking tools that you may have in your pipeline. It's a nice, in this context, I see AI as a nice piece of middleware, sort of, that helps you make sense of all the mountain of data you can get from logs or reports, quality reports, readability reports, or the Veil reports that when it outputs thousands of warnings or info or errors because you run it throughout your entire documentation website. So you run it through hundreds and hundreds of pages. It can help you also, besides making sense of your QA, it can help you make sense of your analytics. Many tech writers use Google Analytics, which is pretty complete. It's a pretty broad and robust set of features, but the dashboards can be a bit cryptic sometimes, or a bit busy. There's lots of charts and options that you can make reports, and sometimes you can get lost in so many options and opportunities that you can have to elaborate that data. AI again can help you simplify this stuff and create a summary or a recap. Or it can just help you say, hey, actually, compared to a month ago, this number went down. It may mean that, for example, the pages that it refers to are out of date, or they are not working for users anymore. So it's good at simplifying relatively complex data into something that is much more digestible and actionable. Let's start from the information gathering. And yeah, Pixabay returned a bunch of really weird images about gathering information. And this is the least weird of all. It's a dog with aviator glasses and a hoodie. It's a kind of hacker-like hoodie. Sorry. AI has helped me find information and summarize information from all the messiness of knowledge storing systems that are available in a corporate environment. If you work for a mid to large size company, everybody's talking about, yes, we need to have a centralized place to store all our internal knowledge, and it never happens. There's always Confluence, Jira, Slack, email, GitLab, Codebase, somebody who just stores everything in Obsidian because that's the only thing they trust. So it's difficult to chase all these sources. It's difficult to know where the relevant information is. Is it in Confluence or is it in Jira? I don't know. AI is good at finding that stuff if you instruct it clearly. It's good at summarizing and give you recaps of Zoom meetings. It can analyze spreadsheet data and return a subset, for example, or turn that spreadsheet data into a chart. It helps you diffing. It helps you compare documents and find out differences or inconsistencies, for example. It does it in a way that is really an enhancement of the way human compare. At least in my experience, it's really a good companion for this kind of activities. And it's great at giving you the short description of your documentation article. It's people usually are busy, they don't have a lot of time, and they get to the docs only when they are frustrated, where their attempts to achieve an outcome have failed. So they're a tough crowd. They're a tough crowd to serve. If you give them the key takeaways from that article of documentation that you worked on for a few days or a week, if you give them to them right away up front, and you really make a difference for them, they can immediately understand in a few seconds if that page is relevant or not. AI is great at doing this. You can feed it a lot of MD5 markdown files or Confluence pages or HTML pages, and you can just ask it to generate short summaries for each of them based on the requirements that you have. Once you've moved on with the information gathering, well, it's a good idea to do some fact checking because the sources may be inaccurate. You may have missed some sources, and AI tends to make things up a lot. However, it's also good at checking stuff. It's good, especially if it can double check the output it wants to return to you with a corpus of data that is sort of the authoritative reference corpus for the AI. This approach is called RAG, and it's very mainstream. There's tons of pretty nice videos, actually pretty good videos on YouTube that give you a quick explanation of what RAG is, how to implement it, and also all the other new acronyms that are popping up every day. But if you want to if you want to bring in AI as a fact checker in your documentation lifecycle process, you need to give it an authoritative reference that it can use. Otherwise, the chances that it will produce aspirational answers and responses is quite high. But if you got RAG implemented, it works pretty well. Here again, I asked Pixabay to give me images related to research, investigation, and fact checking, and it returned me a kind of pulp novel detective and a lawyer, which is good enough, I would say. After you validated your content, the content that you're using to write your documentation, you can plan structure. This is the stuff that tech writers, well, this is our bread and butter, I hope. We like to plan and structure our documentation. AI can help you with that as well, especially, again, if you instruct it, if you teach it how you want it to structure your documentation. If you feed it with authoritative references, which can be templates that are official templates within your company, or a series of articles of documentation that within your company or within the set of documentation that you own are considered really good in terms of how they are structured. You can use them as valid reference and say to the AI, hey, I want you to create a series of templates based on what I'm feeding you now. And I want you also to make sure that all the topics that you create adhere or comply with these templates. It really helps in terms of unblocking you when you have writer's block. If you have a template already with at least the hierarchy structure with the headers and the different subheaders, and maybe just a few placeholders that give you at least an idea of how to balance the text content with any images or videos or charts and graphs that you want to include in the documentation. This is really in my experience, it's a very, very good antidote to writer's block because you already have something. And you can already say, I like it, I don't like it. But in any case, it becomes immediately actionable. You feel, you feel prompted as a human to do something with it. The advantage of using AI to create templates is that it can pre-populate them as well. Instead of having a template with just placeholder content that nobody really reads, nobody really likes, and sometimes it doesn't really help collaborators to write documentation the way you want it to be, you can ask AI, hey, create these templates. For example, create a how-to template, structure it with a title that is action-oriented, with a short description that is maximum, I don't know, 2 lines or 2 sentences, and structure it so that there is an expected outcome, a level of effort, there are prerequisites, and then a numbered list to describe the steps in the procedure. It's great. It can do it. And that also means that you can stop worrying about maintaining templates because the AI can do it for you. And instead of having a static template that is there and you hope that people use it and you hope that people don't change it too much and that you hope it doesn't go out of that it doesn't become obsolete or become stale over time, you can have AI take care of that. It can create templates on demand, basically, and it can pre-populate them with the relevant information that you need to write your piece of doc to flesh it out. Once we moved we move on, we have a template, we can start really the part that I usually experience as really the creative writing, the creative part. It sounds weird, it sounds a little bit funny in a technical writing context, but creating content is regardless the constraints that we have, is a creative process, and this is the part that we enjoy the most. I mean, according to the images that I got from Pixabay, you can, yeah, there's two versions. There's the version that is extremely inspired and types looking facing the sea and with beautiful colors, and there's the super stressed version that has been smoking 400 cigarettes and is fighting with a deadline that has already passed. Uh, I would say that AI can help you more towards the writing in an inspired way, facing the sea, and you can get rid of the the chain smoking and everything. It can give you suggestions about what to write. There's a bunch of different products out there. For example, GitHub Copilot is probably one of the most famous that we can mention, and it's great also for technical writing. If you write docs as code, and probably you use Markdown or ASCII doc or restructured text, and you write your documentation in an IDE, you can use one of these little helpers to help you with English writing. It helps me. It doesn't really help me write impeccable documentation, but it keeps me consistent. It reminds me of a sentence or of a construction of a paragraph that I had written maybe a week ago or a month ago, and that actually is very similar to what I'm writing right now. So I can maybe with minimum changes, I can keep pretty much the same intention, the same structure, and keep it consistent. I can also just turn that little bit into a reusable piece of documentation and maybe use little variables for the dynamic content that changes in there. It can really help you structure your documentation in a modular, maintainable way. And it can help you test and validate the docs. There's a lot of testing and QA that we can do with just existing tooling, especially if you're active in a Docs as code environment. You just have a pipeline, and all the QA testing, all your tests can go in there. You can use Veil as a prose linter, and you can check for dead links or for pages or images that are broken, for example. You can check for a lot of stuff, but AI can help you with reports. It can also help you semi-automate the fixing by helping you, for example, not really do bulk fixes on dead links, but you can find a compromise in between that can speed up the process and a task that is in itself a little bit tedious. What I experience as a big plus of AI in the testing validation phase of the documentation is that it can really, instead of just giving you a report, it can turn that into a series of actions, which is easier. Of course, you as a human can read the report and interpret it and say, I have to do this and this and this. But it's cognitive load. It takes time. If you already have the list that the AI gives you, you can at least validate and assess that and say, does it make sense for me to do this, or does it add values to the docs? You can act on the tasks in a more critical way, which hopefully can help improve the quality of the docs and save you a little bit of time. And finally, if you want to keep an eye on your docs, if you want to understand where they need some love and where actually they work well, you have some analytics, you have some metrics, and you have some reports. Feed everything to the AI, and then ask the AI to make sense out of it. It can help you find trends. It can help you find some gaps. It can help you understand, for example, if a bounce rate on pages is a good or bad thing. Are people bouncing off that page because it is so good that they understand it right away, or because it is so bad that they just quit and abandon? Is that page view so high because it is so interesting, or because it's just a random place where people land after Googling things, and they get just a link from Google, and it happens to be that link to that page? They can really help you think more critically and at a more complex level about what to do next with your docs, instead of just having, oh, we have this page view, we have this time on page, and over time you tend to develop a series of actions that become habit. um, in fact, in this context, AI can help you break bad habits and develop new habits, or at least approach your metrics and your documentation from different angles. And that's quite a healthy benefit, I feel. And here again, about the improving part, Pixabay just gave me either a firebird rising from the ashes, documentation ashes, of course, and a very childish and playful better photo. So what does that mean? There's a bunch of guardrails, and that is useful to think about before you start working with AI. AI works well if you keep it on a tight leash. If you tell it what to do, tell it what not to do, and if you take into account that it is just a thing that was trained on a gazillion data. um, the data is biased by default because it was human generated, and it was assessed, evaluated, and fed to the AI by a bunch of humans. Um, Keep that in mind, even if you don't have access to the original training data corpus, even if you don't know what it is. um, keep that in on the back burner, and it can affect the quality and the relevance of the responses that you get from AI, which is why also AI by itself, if you do not reinforce it with a validation mechanism such as RAG, for example, AI is great at making things up. Some time ago, there was malicious actors found out that AI was just returning non-existing npm packages with non-existing links, and they started to leverage that. They created those packages, but they used them to deliver a malicious payload. So that has been fixed. It doesn't do it anymore, but just be careful. It can say weird things about things in general and about your documentation. It can, if you don't instruct it properly, if you don't put these guardrails, it can give you advice that is counterproductive, or that doesn't really add value. So exert your critical thinking. um, AI is good at lying, which is not hallucination. It's really AI can lie, and it can understand that it's lying and scheming. There was a study that was published in December last year, where they described an experiment that was conducted in pretty extreme um, in a pretty extreme scenario, meaning that the AI that was used for the experiment was incredibly agentic in a way that you would not normally do in any real life situation, because it would be just reckless. But in that context, it was given an objective and a directive. In order to achieve that directive, AI would start lying and would start making things up. Um, so be aware that you need to tame these rough edges. You need to be aware of those, and you need to make sure that your AI is really on tracks, on train tracks that you control and that you define. It boils down to writing good docs, basically. I think this morning I read a LinkedIn post and a blog post, and they were both about how bad AI can be if the reference data is bad. If they are fed bad documentation, let's say, for example, documentation that is 2 or 3 years old, and in the meantime the product has evolved, has changed. Some features don't work anymore, some work differently, and there's a lot of new features. You could ask the AI to produce a how-to or an installation guide or a series of commands for the tool that you want to use but are too lazy to read the docs of, and it would give you something that sounds extremely convincing, extremely reliable, but old, completely obsolete because it's based on old knowledge. If you feed it very messy stuff, like unstructured data in very different formats, a mix of old and new documentation, some incomplete procedures. It's a recipe for disaster because AI cannot discriminate, cannot understand is it good or is it bad. It just take all that data and uses it in a way it doesn't belong. I'm using a word that doesn't belong in this context, but in good faith, uh, even though it's a thing, it cannot tell by itself if the data that you're feeding is reliable or not. That is your job as a human to make sure that you train the AI properly. So be clear, be specific, be accurate, avoid ambiguity. If you can, give examples, plenty of examples. If you feed it a lot of how-tos and a lot of conceptual documentation, also feed real examples of the actual outcome of the how-tos. If it's how to set up and deploy a server, for example, or how to build an application or an app using React. Give it the code example. Try to give examples of how it is done as well, and give context. Give it a role and give it a series of skills that it's good at. If you just say you're a good coder, it's a little bit of everything. But if you say you are a front-end developer and you code especially in TypeScript, and you can deploy to production using Docker and Kubernetes, that really narrows down the focus and makes the AI much more reliable within that context. And yeah, this is an image that I found in Dutch, which is the language of the country I live in. I couldn't find anything else in English that was so silly and so funny. It touches on the environmental concerns. AI is greedy and AI is hungry. The person in this photo has used, says the caption, about 2,000 liters of water to talk with ChatGPT and to ask things like, is there any such thing as eating too many pickles? Or can you lose weight without doing any sports? Or are cigarettes really that bad? And these are just examples of silly, silly questions. But even if it's very, very tempting to play around with ChatGPT and to ask it crazy things, those things have a cost in terms of electricity and water. The data centers use huge amounts of water for cooling, and the amount of electricity that AI systems use puts a huge pressure on the power grid. So be mindful if you can. If you're just interested in cat videos, just go to YouTube. If you want to find cat images, go to YouTube or go to Google Images. Ask yourself, is a Google search enough, or do I really need AI, for example? This is just my own position. You don't need to stick to it, but keep that into account, that this has an environmental cost. If you're environmentally minded, be vocal about it, because this voice is getting loud enough that the big companies, OpenAI and Anthropic, for example, are working to become more environmentally sustainable. And so there is it's a valid argument to be vocal about.
And that's a wrap for today's session. A huge
Thank
thank
you.
you to Marco for
Thank
walking
you.
us through the topic. Hope the practical insights and real life examples shared tonight gave everyone a clearer understanding of how to strategically integrate AI into the documentation workflows. To everyone who tuned in, thank you for taking the time to be here and for all your great questions and comments. We'll be sharing the session recording and slides soon, so keep an eye out for that. And of course, if you have more questions or we want to learn more about Document 360, feel free to reach out. We'll be back soon with another session. Have a wonderful day ahead and see you next time. Thank you,
Thank you,
Marco.
everybody. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Shiba.